Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Zen Honeycutt, and I'm the founder and director of Moms Across America, and we're a national coalition of unstoppable moms, and our motto is Empowered Moms, Healthy Kids. And what we're committed to is empowering millions to educate themselves about GMOs, genetically modified organisms, and related pesticides, to get them labeled as a first step to elimination and to offer GMO-free and organic solutions. And tonight's episode with John Gray, best-selling, world-renowned author of many different books, which I'm going to go over in a minute, is a great tie-in to what we're committed to, because he knows all about GMOs, pesticides, toxins in our environment, how they're impacting our children, their health, their brains, and what we can do about it. So I'm super excited to have John Gray. Hello, John.
Hi, Zen. It's so wonderful to be on this show. I feel honored to be with you. This is such an important message for moms to get and for us to speak up about. Is we've got to label the GMOs so that people understand what they're putting in their bodies, and we want to get the message out as to what's happening to our kids today and how we can avoid the troubles.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm going to give a little background for those of you. I don't think it's needed, but it is exciting to hear about what John Gray has done. John Gray is the leading relationship expert in the world and best-selling author of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. Gray's books have sold over 50 million copies in 50 different languages around the world. And in his book, Work With Me, The 8 Blind Spots Between Men and Women in Business, he teaches us how to achieve a more comfortable and productive work environment. John's new book, Staying Focused in a Hyper World, Natural Solutions for ADHD, Memory, and Brain Performance, provides practical strategies for improving relationships at all ages and stages of life. Through his highly acclaimed books, videos, and transformational seminars, John's purpose is to create a world where men and women understand, respect, appreciate, and ultimately work together. Lionsgate Summit Entertainment has purchased the right to John Gray's bestseller, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, with the intention of creating a feature film and TV series. Star Reese Witherspoon and commercial directing whiz Brian Buckley joined the project with anticipated release date of 2015. Gray has appeared on Dr. Oz, Suzanne Summers, Oprah, Today Show, CBS, many, many more. And he's been profiled on Newsweek, Time Magazine, Forbes, US Today, and scores of other major programs. I'm sure you know who John Gray is. We're so happy to have you here. And by the way, his Twitter handle is @MarsVenus, and his website is marsvenus.com. So, John, we can't wait to hear from you, but I do have to pull the tie-in for the moms out there that are sort of wondering. We've got this wonderful relationship expert with us on today, and what happened? How did you come across health, and why did you transition into health?
Well, I'm 64, and 15 years ago, I had early stage Parkinson's. I'm happily married now for 30 years, but 15 years ago, when I healed the Parkinson's, I had to study what causes Parkinson's. I found natural solutions for it. I had access to some of the best alternative researchers and doctors to find a natural solution. But what I found is that same natural solution improved my brain function. So I was way better than before I had Parkinson's. It's been 15 years. Parkinson's has not come back, and my brain has even been better, and my relationship got better. So I thought, oh my gosh, if people can understand the way the brain works, improve the hormone production, balance the hormones, stimulate optimal brain function, it helps for their relationships. And as I looked into this, I saw that, the research showing all the challenges our children are experiencing today, it comes down to the same causes of what caused my Parkinson's, and the solution is often very much the same. It's how to get your digestion working, how to get the right nutrition into the brain, and how to detox all the toxicity. And it's not just about adding things, but let's say I had a remedy for a headache, and it was all natural and had no side effects, and I gave it to you. It might not work if you keep hitting yourself over the head with a hammer. And that's why we have to understand the ways, particularly environmentally, we're being triggered to have these conditions. And the beginning of the book, I go through some really doomsday type statistics. For example, I'll just say a few.
Yeah,
For
please.
mothers, for women, right now, 1 out of 6 women over 65 has dementia. This is crippling to your life, completely crippling. If you live to 85, and more people are living to 85, 1 out of 2 people today who is 85 or beyond has Alzheimer's. This is horrible. And, you know, in my own situation, not only was I motivated to study this because of my Parkinson's, but my younger brother, he had bipolar. And I studied meditation and all those spiritual things to try to help him. And then I went to California, got a PhD in psychology to try to help him. And really, it turns out that the solution was all biochemical. We got to understand what's going on in our gut, what's going on in our brain, and what we're putting in our stomach. And you can correct these things. So that was a major thing. And then my sister, who's younger than me, in her 50s, had Alzheimer's, and she died within a couple of years. It was so sad. It was so sad. Unfortunately, she lived somewhere else in the country, and you want to give advice to your spouse, your family members. They don't always listen to your advice. So I wasn't able to help her, but have done the research and continue doing the research to help people avoid these awful, awful situations. And it's just getting worse every day when we see the statistics in terms of ADHD in boys. It can be as high as 1 out of 3 or 1 out of 5 boys in a classroom taking something like Ritalin or Adderall in order to treat the symptoms. And what I put in my book, one of my major motivations in this book is for mothers and fathers to understand there's research from Harvard University showing that Ritalin and Adderall are actually causing brain damage. And that's their words. Now, from my side, I call it brain injury. And the good thing about an injury is you can heal an injury. And that's what this is all about, is we have to understand what's causing the problem, minimize our exposure to that, detoxify the body and supplement the body and make some adjustments. Certainly extra behavioral support is important as well. But what our media tends to do again and again is make it black or white. Do you take the drugs or do you not take the drugs and you just get, behavioral support? And there's so much more in between, and they're just not getting that. People are not getting that message. And even in one of the chapters in my book, just with nutritional support, 8 different supplements and combinations of supplements that were tested to be equal to and the benefits of Ritalin and Adderall, but with absolutely no side effects, no injury to the brain, providing the brain with the support it needs. I also talk about various therapies that have also, there's so many different pathways to get to the top of the mountain. I'm not attached to one. It's people have to find out what works for them, what works with their budget as well. But there are so many easy shortcuts people can take if they have the knowledge. And, where I live, almost everywhere I go, I'll be hanging out at downtown and I'll hear mothers talking about their children's problems, and they haven't heard, and they'll be taking Adderall or Ritalin, and they haven't heard about these natural solutions. And then other parents will say to me, oh, I've tried everything. And they tried a particular diet. And good diets can be very helpful for sure, but they're not necessarily going to provide the nutrients that are necessary for the brain to heal. They will prevent the problem from getting worse, but you've got to add, for the healing process, you've got to add what's been missing.
Right, absolutely. Robert Scott Bell mentioned that if you put probiotics into gut dysbiosis area, it's like putting a polar bear in the desert, right? You've got to actually heal the gut. You actually have to put new minerals and, the minerals and supplements back in, which is what's extremely important, what a lot of people are missing. And you can't just take something away and then not restore and heal the gut. So it's so important. And your book mentions so many different things. I just want to touch on a few places that you mentioned all the different stats right in the first chapter, just things that really matter to us. Like, did you know that 1 out of 4 American children have been bullied or attacked? This is happening from children that have, possibly mental disorders or, ADHD or issues like that. That you mentioned the boys having.
Let me mention on that one. Yeah. I have San Quentin right over the bay here, and where I live, and every violent offender has lead poisoning in their body. That you will have violence, you will have bullying behavior, no matter what kind of role model you have, what kind of education you have. what you will have is a sociopath or psychopath, a violent behavior person, if they have lead poisoning. Now, where does lead poisoning come from? It's usually in homes which are really old. The paint used to have lead in it, and it actually turns to kind of a dust. It flakes off. You don't see it. It's microscopic dust. These are microscopic levels, and it gets in the carpet. Then children are playing in the carpet, putting their hands in the mouth, getting lead poisoning. And of course, if you're living next to a freeway, cars put out lead poisoning. The tires put out lead poisoning. It's just the air is toxic. We just are being so exposed to these different things. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just had to throw that in about violence and bullying.
And I want to throw something else back in, that in ancient Rome, they transferred to lead pipes, and we believe that's been a part of the fall of, that was a part of the fall of Rome.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see in the catacombs, I've been in the catacombs, all these bones of all for generations, they've got them all down there, and they did the test showing that when they invented the lead pipes, from that moment on, all the bones before that had no lead in them. And today, that lead continues to get passed on. Every child born today, every adult has lead in our bones. And prior to that time, we didn't have lead in our bones. And what can happen is slowly it will leach out. But more importantly, we get it from our environment. It's even much, much worse.
Yes. And so when people talk about progress, you know, that GMOs and chemical farming are progress, it's extremely concerning to us as mothers, because the lead pipes were progress.
Nicely said.
You know, in Rome, and they didn't know about the effects till I don't know, was it hundreds or if not thousands, 1,000 years later? It was very, very long time. So we really have to be aware that progress is not a good thing just because it's new. Just because we should doesn't mean that we ought to do it. And you mentioned in your book that antibiotics, pesticides, plastics, and GMOs are something we really need to be aware of. And you know, we can't be aware of them, of course, without labeling, GMO labeling, but we are trying to spread the word as much as possible. Can you tell us a little bit more about why you think we need to avoid GMOs and toxic pesticides in our food?
So the story looks like this, okay? This is what's going on and has been going on for many, many years or over, is that you have GMOs or plants that have been altered in their genes so that a particular pesticide can be sprayed on them, and that's Roundup. And Roundup has a substance called glyphosates. When these glyphosates are put on the plant, because the plant has been altered in its genetic structure, the plant doesn't die, but instead what dies is all of the bugs around the plant. So the bugs don't eat the plant. What people don't realize, and the reason glyphosates are legal, because, you know, there's some regulations on these things. Glyphosates do not kill human cells, so they make it legal. But glyphosates kill bacteria cells. They're killing the bugs, so they kill the good bacteria in our gut. And that's what causes this neurotoxicity, both in the gut. We're losing beneficial bacteria in our gut, which is necessary to make so many important proteins for the body, as well as to make brain chemicals and precursors to making brain chemicals, all comes from the microbiome. And glyphosates are systematically wiping out the microbiome, which is so necessary. And where do we get that microbiome? As a baby, we get it from our mother. We get some of it from the breast milk. We get it when we're coming to the vaginal canal, and it gets transferred to the baby. Now, where did our mom get it? She got it from her mother. And where did she get it? From her mother. And this has taken thousands of years to evolve this very complex microbiome collection of specific probiotic strains of bacteria that are necessary for digestion. And when in their absence, what happens is fungus can grow, candida can grow, and all these things interrupt our natural digestion. And when you have high levels of these fungals and candida and low levels of probiotics, it messes with your hunger, and you'll tend to crave the very foods that feed the bad bacteria and don't feed the good bacteria. So what we get is sugar cravings. So our children are just having wild sugar cravings. And this is due to the fungus in the gut, due to the lack of good bacteria that in normal situations could fight off those bad bacteria, so to speak, and they have a role in small amounts. But what happens is we have too much of the bad and not enough of the good. And if we have more of the good, then it keeps everything in balance.
And how does the bad bacteria in the gut impact the brain behavior?
Well, let's look at one example, which is in the news right now, which is one of the things about the microbiome is bacteria in the gut have been proven to produce a protein called GCMAF. It's a protein that makes vitamin D work. And if you don't have vitamin D working in your body, then you don't get 3,000 benefits of vitamin D. Vitamin D is in the news today as being the most important vitamin. People do tend to be deficient in it because we don't spend all day in the sun, being exposed to the sun, which is people for thousands of years, we've evolved being exposed to the sun, and the sun is our source of vitamin D. And then we put on sunscreen on our kids, and we don't want to get burned for sure, but we just slather them with sunscreen so they never actually get real sun exposure. And the sunscreen or the windows in your house will block the important frequencies of light that stimulate the body to make vitamin D. So without vitamin D, we get a host of problems. Many researchers are finding is just vitamin D is so helpful for brain function. It regulates calcium absorption in the brain. And it regulates calcium going into the neurons and being pulled out of the neurons. And if it doesn't get pulled out of the neurons, what happens is you get brain cell death. So vitamin D is so important for regulation of brain chemicals. So glutamine.
So too much, hang on a second. So too much calcium in the brain can cause brain cell death?
Yes, yes.
Because a lot of people are taking calcium all day long in America.
It's not so much about how much calcium you're taking, although really Americans get plenty of calcium. It's never a concern. We take more calcium than anyone in the world, and we have more osteoporosis than anywhere in the world. But the vitamin D is what's necessary for the bones to utilize calcium. So you can take calcium, but the secret is, can you utilize calcium? But it regulates. You have to use calcium, but you have to then pull it out. And what happens in the brain is neurons need calcium, but if they get too much absorption in the brain, if they take it in, and that's what glyphosates have now proven to cause, is they prevent the uptake of calcium. So calcium gets in a cell and it doesn't leave. You see, there's an in and out of everything. And when it gets stuck in there, then brain cells start to die. It needs to go in and come out, go in and come out. And vitamin D regulates that. Vitamin K is also necessary for that. Magnesium is also necessary for that. And this protein, GCMAF, is necessary for that. And if you do not have good gut bacteria, you cannot make the GCMAF. If you don't eat enough vegetables, you can't get the vitamin K2, which is so necessary for regulating. If you're not getting sunshine, you're not going to get the production of vitamin D. It doesn't take a lot. 15 minutes in the sun will produce massive amounts of vitamin D. So if you're not getting 15 minutes in the sun every day without sunblock, vitamin D3 is a good supplement that, you know, children should be taking, parents should be taking. It's so important. If you're not getting your vegetables, plenty of green vegetables, then you need to be taking vitamin K2. Most really good vitamin supplements today will have K2 in it, but it's so very, very important. Even for us as adults, they found that vitamin K2 is the vitamin that will clear our veins so we don't have heart attacks. A substance called nattokinase, which is really high in K2 in Japan, is responsible, it's a Japanese food, responsible why they have lower heart attacks and cleaner blood vessels. Clears it out, clears out the plaque in our blood vessels.
I heard vitamin K2 is also in grass-fed raw organic butter.
Yes, yes, the best butter will have that.
Weston A. Price Foundation, one of our supporters, really promotes that.
Yeah,
yes? Okay.
Absolutely fantastic. And the butter, mothers and fathers should know, butter is just the best thing for your kids. It's just, but it has to be grass-fed. And if it's not, it doesn't have all these benefits in it. That's the sad truth, is that quality is so important when it comes to our health. So the microbiome is literally systematically being destroyed, one by the glyphosates, which do it, and it's proven to do it. Two is antibiotics, and sometimes that's unavoidable, but we should be very careful only to give antibiotics if absolutely necessary, and then replenish the gut with a lot of probiotics afterwards, because antibiotics wipe out bad bacteria, but they also wipe out this good bacteria in our gut. So let's say you're a mother and you've had lots of antibiotics, you probably don't have the probiotics in you to pass on to your child. That's one of the tragedies of what's been going on with this several generations of antibiotics. And now we have the generations of glyphosates. And you know, we know how many people can't digest wheat today. You know, for some children, just taking vitamin D and taking them off of any foods that have glyphosates, particularly wheat, will take away ADHD symptoms. There's studies showing that. I mean, this is one of the easiest things that a parent can do, but there are other things that they might have to do because every child is different. There's a lot of conditions going on. If your child, for example, has good muscular mass, but they have ADHD type symptoms, learning difficulties, behavioral difficulties, and they have muscle mass, a good strong muscle mass, just taking omega-3 has been proven to be more effective than any of these drugs, and finding a good form of omega-3. I prefer, for at least in the beginning, to get fast results. There's different forms of vitamins. There's something called liposomal omega-3, liposomal vitamin C. It's where they take substances and they put it with phosphatidylserine, which is a brain chemical, and they mix it together in a special process so that the nutrient is absorbed better in the body. I've gotten a lot of, I talk a lot about vitamin C, and grapeseed extract has also been studied and helped children as much as Ritalin and Adderall. No side effects, but you have to take higher doses of vitamin C. And again, what's great is that with liposomal vitamin C, there are no side effects of taking high doses of vitamin C. Not that high, just 1,000 milligrams a day. Or 2,000, and when the liposomal form, there's no possibility of diarrhea or any stomach problems that result from it. So it's just it's the new frontiers is this liposomal vitamins, and people should know about that. They assimilate into the body better.
Now, you've said a lot of words that some people, won't know how to spell and don't know how to research. Where can they find out information about what you just talked about?
Well, if you do a Google search for lipo, L-I-P-O, somal, S-O-M-A-L, vitamins, the information will come up. All the things I talk about, I have free videos at my website, marsvenus.com, where if people just go to the health section, you'll see any condition, and there's a lot on ADHD where I talk about that, and you get this explained in greater details. That's free.
Now, so people must be wondering, did you get a naturopathic, degree in between the time of having Parkinson's and now, or do you just study this yourself? Do you have doctor, advisors? How did you come about this knowledge?
Yeah, it's very important. What I did is when I had the symptoms of Parkinson's, then I went to several alternative doctors to look for solutions, and really some of it came up with myself. I'll tell you the logic there, which was when you start having involuntary shaking, it looks very much like an alcoholic going through withdrawals. Mm-hmm. And what's going on there is inhibited dopamine function. And so I started looking at natural solutions for withdrawal symptoms, which was a doctor by the name of Dr. Hitt in Mexico. He had to go to Mexico to do these treatments because they weren't allowed in the United States. And I sat there in a room with some rock stars who were going off of cocaine and heroin, one medical doctor who was trying to get off of OxyContin, a woman who wanted to get off of her sugar addictions, another person who wanted to get off of his whatever they were. There were about 9 different addictions sitting in the room. And we're all getting IV drips. That means you're actually pumping into your veins a substance, and you get that in the hospital. And what they were dripping into our blood vessels was proteins, pre-digested proteins, because all your brain chemicals basically have to come from food that is digested and that gets converted into brain chemicals. Well, if your gut isn't doing a good job, you can't get those brain chemicals. So they bypass that by just putting it in your bloodstream. So things like tryptophan and phenylalanine and tyrosine and GABA, these are all, precursors of brain chemicals and some brain chemicals, just pumping it right in there. And I watched all of these people going off of their drugs, which normally have terrible side effects, just horrible side effects, with none. They were just tired. They were just really relaxed and tired. And of course, they said to me, "What are you here for?" I said, "Parkinson's." And they went, "Oh, yeah, yeah, denial." They thought I was on some drug as well. But the point being is that this sort of a neural support, by providing the brain with the nutrients it's missing, the brain could start to heal itself. And typically in that treatment, it lasts about 3 months and people's tendencies would come back. So when my Parkinson's came back after 3 months, I then said, you know, how could I get these same nutrients in natural substances? And that's where I began developing the body of knowledge I have today. I pulled in a lot of naturopathic doctors. I opened up a wellness center, and I would have them come and give talks and teach classes. And I would teach classes based upon what I was learning and testing out. And that was at my ranch in Northern California for about 8 years, I think it was. And then I was working a lot with autistic children who within 3 days, some were talking and who never talked, and Tourette symptoms were going away, and eye contact was coming out, speech was improving, using some of these modalities that I was developing there. And then I had the fear of liability and shut the whole thing down, because when you're doing alternative things and somebody threatens to sue you, you could lose everything. And so an angry father, he called and said he was going to sue me. He was a lawyer, because I had, you know, being a quack, had gotten his wife to come out there to do this thing, to travel out to California and do this treatment. And it scared me a lot. And fortunately, that child, like other children, had tremendous benefit. And the child was a child who never talked. And it started talking 25 new words in 2 days. And the mother put the little child on the phone, and the little child said, "Daddy, I miss you. I love you." And that was the end of that lawsuit. But I just was too scared. And I'd even done a documentary, people with doctors talking about and so forth. And even then, what I was providing these kids is easy to pre-digested proteins in a superfood shake, super minerals that help to stimulate the digestion and the utilization of amino acids, and putting them on a lemonade type drink with lemon and aloe vera. And the other side of it was my hydrotherapy technique that I talk about in the book. What was very interesting is we put these kids in these baths and measure what came out in the water. And huge amounts of herbicides were in the water. And the parents said, "My child has complete organic food all the time." They just didn't know where this came when they measured the water. And the problem is with autistic children and any child on that spectrum, even to ADHD, is their ability to eliminate toxicity is limited. So even a little exposure stays in their body. Whereas if you have good elimination, where you can eliminate toxicity, then you could be exposed to more and not be affected by it. But these children were really on really great diets and so forth, but even the smallest exposure to glyphosates and herbicides and pesticides, the smallest exposure did not leave their body. And that's why, you know, I became so focused on, we need to open the channels for detoxification to occur. And this wasn't news for a lot of experts in autism and brain function. It was glutathione. You know, a lot of these kids were already taking shots of glutathione and so forth to help the body to detoxify. What you'll find is every child with autism, every child with ADHD, anybody with dementia, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, all those kind of conditions, learning disabilities, if you check their glutathione levels, they're non-existent. The body cannot eliminate toxicity. So that's why people say, "Oh, what's the big deal about toxicity? It doesn't seem to affect me." Yeah, that means you have enough glutathione in order to eliminate it. But many children don't have that glutathione to eliminate it.
And is that a genetic thing, or is that something that they've been impacted in through you think through the fetus, you know, in the womb, or where do you think that inability to detox comes from?
Okay, it's the lowering of glutathione that particularly blocks the detoxification. Okay, so what are the things that lower glutathione? Well, if the mother has high blood sugar in the womb or before being in the womb, she just has high blood sugar, it will inhibit the body's ability to make glutathione. The child will have high blood sugar and inhibit the child's ability to make glutathione. So that would be one of the major conditions. Another one, which is so easily to avoid, and that is the active ingredient in Tylenol, acetaminophen, and in Europe it has another name. But it's in over 700 over-the-counter medications that people can just go buy. Now in America, 94,000 people last year were put in a hospital from acetaminophen poisoning. It causes liver damage, and this is the most common substance that has acetaminophen in it is your Tylenol, for example.
Now, would this be an overdose of Tylenol or just a normal dose?
Normal dose of Tylenol inhibits glutathione production. That's what it does. That's how it functions. Is a fever, you take acetaminophen in order to lower a fever, for example. What it's doing is it's stopping the body from doing this natural process that actually makes more glutathione. So let's say you have a child, and due to their own level of health, their own healthy microbiome, their own sensitivity to toxicity, that's a given, okay? We all have different levels of strength and vitality to toxicity. And you now put a vaccination in that child, and the vaccination has a whole list of neurotoxins. Now, this is not questionable. We all know this to be the case. You've got formaldehyde in there, which is a neurotoxin. You've got MSG, which is a neurotoxin. You've got aluminum, almost every one, which is a neurotoxin. You've got mercury in many of them, massive neurotoxin. So you suddenly have these neurotoxins in the body, and the body says, okay, let me get rid of this. Okay, and because these neurotoxins cause infections, all right? They have an effect of producing infections in the brain, throughout the body, in the gut, and so forth. Now, when inflammation then comes from those infections, so the body says, oh, toxicity, let me get rid of it. Let me eliminate those heavy metals out of the body. To do that, it needs more glutathione. Now, if it doesn't have enough glutathione, then the body will say, make even more glutathione by causing a fever. So now you have a fever in response to your treatment. And the worst thing you can do at that time is to suppress the fever with Tylenol. Because what you've just done is shut down your body's protective defense against what you just did to the body. And what's so sad is that many mothers are being told, take the Tylenol before so your child won't even have a fever. They won't feel any pain. And you go, oh my God, you're shutting down your body's ability to protect itself from this toxic substance that you just put into the body. And you know, when people go, oh, vaccinations aren't
like vaccines, right? Yeah, they give them Tylenol just before they take a vaccine.
Yes, some do, yes, and some do it afterwards, and your child gets a fever, and the fever is at 101 and 103, and it's scary. Parents are scared at that point because they don't have a health professional telling them it's perfectly good, it's perfectly normal, all the way up to 105 degrees, which is generally it will stay, won't go over 105 degrees. Your child might even have a few seizures. They're perfectly fine. They cause no side effects, no danger, but you have to be with your child when they have a fever. You don't want to suppress the fever. Now, I've worked with many parents with this, and they've told me that when the child lets the fever run down naturally, the child always goes through some mental breakthrough. It actually clears the brain of infections. When your body heats up, basically any bacteria infection will die. It doesn't hurt good bacteria. There's never been a report throughout history. There's no research to validate that a fever causes brain damage or brain injury. Never. It's just that when a fever goes above 107, it means that there's some viral infection, and antibiotics would probably be the answer. So that's when you start to worry. If it goes over 105, you're still not getting a damage due to the fever. What you're getting is the symptom of something else which is not good in your body. And in those cases, that's when you resort to emergency medicine, and we're so grateful for it. But until you're above 105, no need for emergency medicine.
So 105 can't cause brain damage then?
Absolutely, has never done it. Now what can happen is this, it can drop real suddenly or spike real fast, and that can cause a very short seizure that a child will have. And they're called febrile seizures, and they have no danger to them at all. They're uncomfortable for the child, but this is a healing in the body. Healing can be uncomfortable at times, but we have to allow that to take place. It's a natural phenomena. It's your body's protection against this assault that we've just put on the body. Anytime a child has a fever and you take a fever suppressant, you're interrupting your body's natural healing ability. Now, these children that take the measles vaccine, what they find is with the autistic children, if you look in their gut, the measles vaccine is in there. It didn't get eliminated. It's still doing its business there. It just didn't show up the other way. When you put it in a different form, it doesn't show up the normal way, but it affects them completely. So you just don't know what you have the genes which give you a certain sensitivity, but it's the nutritional deficiencies, it's the toxicity that activates those genes that turns them on and off. And the most important protective one is vitamin D. And for your vitamin D to work, you need the GCMAF. Now, Dr. Bradstreet, who we heard speak at the autism conference, he's used a lot of the GCMAF, having great results with kids. For 25%, I believe, 15 to 25% had almost complete or had complete remission from their symptoms of autism. You've seen it as well, healing the gut and symptoms go away.
Now, the GCMAF, is that a supplement or is that also in food?
Well, what was happening is Bradstreet was doing the actual laboratory produced GCMAF, and the FDA decided that that was illegal. So the FDA shut down that activity. They've made the actual substance GCMF unavailable because of the manufacturing process. They said that it wasn't being manufactured properly. The good news is that there are certain yogurts that have the probiotics and the right balance that produce the protein GCMAF and a lot of other good things. Yogurt and
which kind of yogurts?
Well, the brand is Bravo Yogurt. Okay, this was developed by one of the doctors who was doing a lot of the research on GCMF. His wife helped develop a combination of probiotics, 42 different probiotics, human probiotics from around the world. And there were over 132 studies done to find the right balance of probiotics so that the yogurt itself would make GCMAF. So a child can take the GCMAF yogurt and you swish it around your mouth and your body can absorb that GCMAF protein and you get the benefits of that. It became very controversial because lots of researchers were curing cancer with it. There was even a center in Switzerland that was using the actual pure GCMF that they were making in cultures in the laboratory. And the results, people can go online and see the amazing results. If they just go to GCMAF Google search, you'll come up to the sites and you can see the amazing research. That's not my expertise, but I just know what I know is that they found that this GCMF is a protein that's made from a healthy microbiome that does many, many things. Plus it makes vitamin D work effectively. So you want to take vitamin D, you want to take the yogurt. That's one wonderful program, along with the making sure you're taking vitamin K2 and you're getting enough magnesium. So these are like really important things. Almonds are a great source of magnesium for people to know as well, or you can take supplements.
And this is all important because without these certain vitamins and minerals, we can't produce the glutathione. And the glutathione is what protects the nerves and the cells. Is that correct?
Let's talk about glutathione for a moment. Okay, so glutathione is actually made in every cell in your body, but a lot of it is made in your liver. And that's like with Tylenol and other drugs as well, but Tylenol does it more than any of them. There's two drugs that do it the most, and one is the acetaminophen, which is in like if you have the cough medicine, we'll have acetaminophen. Now, I think Motrin might even have acetaminophen. It seems like it's everywhere now. And you want to always look for that and know that you're causing glutathione deficiency and injury to your liver when you take it. That's a side effect. People need to understand that. So what does glutathione do? Three main things glutathione does. One is it's a super antioxidant. Now, everybody hears the word antioxidant, and we know we need antioxidants. Antioxidants neutralize free radicals. So you have a free radical and an antioxidant, and everybody's happy. But if you have a free radical and no antioxidant, then neural damage takes place. Damage to your body takes place. So that's why we don't want more free radicals than antioxidants. Well, stress is massive free radicals. Whenever you're worrying, you're producing massive free radicals. If you're actually more like a savant. You're using your brain a lot, and these kids actually grow their brain in certain parts bigger. All of that brain activity, particularly in the first 2 years, is when we have more brain activity than anywhere else, any other time in our lives, and particularly in boys, tremendous brain activity then to grow the gray matter. That activity needs energy, and energy makes free radicals. So if you don't have enough antioxidants at that time, brain injury takes place and brain development derails. Certain parts of the brain develop and other parts don't. And what we want to do is bring that back into balance by healing the injury which is taking place by too much free radicals and not enough antioxidants. So when people hear that, they think, okay, let me eat lots of antioxidants. Well, that's really good, but that doesn't even come close. Doesn't even come close to the potency of glutathione, which is what your body needs to be making. Okay, so the first thing it does, it protects the brain from neural damage. All right. The second thing glutathione does is it facilitates the body in removing heavy metals, removing toxicity from the body. Without glutathione, you cannot get rid of the toxicity. It just, you know, a pregnant mother walks down the street in New York City. She has just inhaled a huge amount of toxicity that goes right through her, right into the child. And they've proven that now, that it goes right into the child. And without glutathione, those toxins cannot be removed from the body. So that's the second thing that glutathione does. It opens the channels of detoxification. It protects the brain from free radical damage and other parts of the body from free radical damage. And the third thing glutathione does is it's a precursor to making dopamine and serotonin. You have to have glutathione for your body to make something called SAMe, which is then the precursor to your amino acids and making dopamine and serotonin. So there's 150,000 studies showing glutathione is necessary for healthy function in the body, and the deficiency of glutathione is associated with all brain disorders, with all anxiety, with all sleeplessness. This is all about, you know, a healthy liver and also a body that can make glutathione. There are a few other antioxidants that the body makes, but glutathione is the most potent, and it is being suppressed by Tylenol or by acetaminophen. And mothers should do whatever they can to avoid giving your children these things. If you have to, and if you're being mandated or choosing to do vaccinations, just know that the toxic substance in vaccinations produce massive, massive amounts of free radicals. Let me give you an example of what a heavy metal does in terms of producing free radicals. You take a petri dish of brain cells and you look at their microscope. These are neurons, and they're all connected with all kinds of webs and so forth. And this is like all a huge network, and just from a microscopic little bit. You add a heavy metal in there, and overnight, all of the neurons are dead. First, the connective tissue starts disappearing, then the neurons disappear. They just die. And this is from one little bit of mercury or one little bit of heavy metal in there. And you think, well, how does that happen? That's called a chemical reaction. Like in a laboratory, you might remember doing experiments and explosions would take place. You put this with this, explosions. Well, that's what happens with these heavy metals. And our human race, we evolved in the absence of this kind of exposure. This is the chemicals that have produced all of our life today. These chemicals go into the water, they go into the ground, they're in the air from jet fuels and various things in the air. It comes down into the soil. The cows eat it. The grass is filled with it. We are being inundated with toxicity. Now, what's interesting is that even in history, when there was low toxicity in the environment, it was a part of every religion and every culture to regularly do fasts, to regularly go off of solid foods and give your body some kind of like soup. The Chinese would do soup. The Hindus would do lemon water. You know, there'd be various types of fasting protocols that different traditions would do. And what those fasting protocols would do is allow the body to rest. If you're not eating a lot of food, then your body says, okay, let's clean up, and glutathione levels go up. So another cause of increasing glutathione is fasting. If you were to fast, you would increase your glutathione levels tremendously as well. So these are things that we have to learn. Now, fasting and detoxifying is not good for a pregnant mother, for sure. But you can be doing as preparation for getting pregnant.
Now, and can you remind me just one more time how we got from glyphosate to glutathione? How could glyphosate be preventing the production of glutathione? Can you remind me?
Okay, so when you get glyphosate, we didn't discuss that. I'll do it now.
Oh,
When
okay.
glyphosate goes into the body, it kills the microbiome. The microbiome makes very important substances. One of those substances is GCMAF. GCMAF activates vitamin D. Vitamin D is necessary along with vitamin C in order to make glutathione. So now your ability to even make glutathione is going to go down because of these GMOs and the pesticides and the glyphosates, and also plastics. The soft plastic, the softer plastic is, the more toxicity it has. And now they're saying the plastic is free of that chemical. And then you go online and you find two studies from the University of Texas and another study that says the new version of that soft plastic is even more toxic than the other one. It's just, it takes a long time for these things to be made illegal. And then they come in, well, okay, this is different. And they've just changed a few molecules around and whatever. It turns out to be even worse. So anything that's soft plastic, you do not want to touch to your mouth or drink from or whatever. And if you can avoid drinking from plastics altogether, that would be the best. Having a good water filter at home, not just this simple Brita, but a real water filter that gets everything out. And then you take your water and you put it in glass bottles. There's lots of companies that sell glass bottles, and that's what you should be drinking from. Glass has no toxicity to it, and you want to purify your water. Tap water is toxic. So many toxicity, you kill another source of killing bacteria. I mean, the body is amazing resilient. Okay, so it's not like, oh my God, all this is going to wipe us out. It's just particularly for our children, it's affecting them the most. But if we have any of these health conditions that we see happening, we now understand clearly the things that are linking to it. The chlorine in water is toxic to the gut. Chlorine is a carcinogen. That's why you put it in your pool and your water. It kills bacteria. So now you put chlorine in your body and it kills bacteria. And you don't want it to kill this good bacteria in your gut, and chlorine will do it. Even more so is showering in chlorine water produces a chlorine gas, and that is absorbed even more than if you drink it. So there's simple little shower filters you can put on your shower that will take out the chlorine. It turns the chlorine back to salt. There's a little crystal ball you can order for $50 online, and you put it through your bathtub when your child takes a bath, and you take out all the chlorine. You don't worry if there's any bacteria. The chlorine is just to keep the bacteria from growing. It doesn't grow while you're sitting in the bathtub for an hour. So right. You want to get that chlorine out, and then your child can have a good bath. Now, again, I mentioned earlier at my wellness center, we really did a lot of amazing experimentation with water therapy. And there's more sophisticated things you can do, but just simply putting your child in a hot bath for 30 or 40 minutes, ideally 40, but the research that was finally done to verify this work, they took children, this was done last year, in England, they took autistic children and they put them in a bathtub for 30 minutes, nice comfortable bathtub, and no change. Then they put them in, many days later, they put them in a bathtub at 102 degrees. That's a pretty hot bathtub. That's like a hot tub, which they tell you shouldn't put children in. They put them at 102 degrees, and every child had dramatically improved symptoms. Now, for this to create lasting results and improved results over time, you want to do it every other day. The effects, they actually produce a little chemical in your brain that helps make glutathione, fights bacterial infections, reduces inflammation, all by being in a hot bathtub. Now, this is one of the oldest remedies in the world. Now, mothers who followed this have come to me, shown me the papers. They've completely regressed their children from autism. And this is one approach. There's so many different approaches. But again, what a bathtub does, hot bathtub, is going to increase the glutathione levels and produce chemicals in the body that fight bacteria infection and they fight inflammation. And the ultimate technique is this, and it's a little intimidating to mothers, but the mothers who followed it come back to me a year later and say, look at my child, completely transformed. And this comes from ancient Germany. It's called The Cure When Nothing Else Works. And this is talked about more in my book, the details of it. But basically, just putting your child in 103 degrees for 40 minutes every other day is going to have a big effect. Now, some children, particularly once they get used to it, can more easily do this. But you lie back in the water with your head underwater and your face out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the ultimate is you start around 98 degrees for 20 minutes. Then you next 20 minutes, you go to 101 degrees. And the last 20 minutes, you go to 103 degrees. That's the ideal program. You can do all variations of that. Any variation will help. But this is the ultimate. Every other day, 1 hour, and you have to be with the child, of course, entertaining the child in different ways. You know, you have to work it out with your child. First, you become very familiar with the whole idea and hotter water and so forth. But the way it was done a long time ago, and I've been to these spas in Australia, New Zealand, Germany, various places. They'll have and here in Calistoga even, you have one pool, a natural sort of hot springs, and it's kind of warm, 98 degrees, and you lie in it. And they're very shallow, so you can lie with your face out of the water. You want to get your head to induce a fever. Remember, the fever is the key.
Oh, okay.
Inducing a very low-graded fever. You're lying there. 98 degrees is just sort of warming it up. It doesn't cause the fever. Then at 101 degrees, now you're warming it up even more for 20 minutes. The most important thing is the last 20 minutes at 103 degrees. And that's what induces the fever, which will kill bacteria infections and inhibit any viral infection which is going on. And what we have to realize is parents don't realize that infections are going on in the body all the time. What we know is we call it inflammation, but all inflammation is the result of an infection. An infection is the overpopulation of a group of bacteria, okay, or viruses overpopulating. And when they're too much, it causes these bacteria eat the body and they kill neurons and so forth. So the body then creates inflammation to protect itself from that, but it becomes chronic if we don't have enough glutathione. Glutathione is the key to this thing. Heat is another key to this. If we can eliminate glyphosates, then our body can make the GCMAF and other important nutrients so the body can heal itself. Also, when you don't have the microbiome, you can't generate more stem cells to regenerate the brain. Now, there's one other aspect here is that glyphosates interfere with the normal calcium regulation in the brain. And the mineral that helps to regulate calcium in the brain, it works with GCMF, is lithium. Now, calcium is important. Calcium is alkalizing mineral. Magnesium is an alkalizing mineral. Potassium is an alkalizing mineral. That means it delivers beneficial oxygen to the cells. Zinc is an alkalizing mineral. And the other alkalizing mineral is lithium. And unfortunately, lithium has this terrible reputation. People don't know lithium springs. The people would go from all around the world to get to these natural springs, which had natural lithium in it, sulfur and lithium. By the way, sulfur springs increase glutathione. Glutathione is produced by sulfur.
That's why people feel so good after sulfur springs.
Yes, sulfur
But when
springs.
people think lithium, they just think mental institution and people drooling.
Right. So let's cover that. And also they think danger, and it's not true at all. So let me explain the difference here. What they found is over 50 years ago, scientists were looking for a cure for depression. And they saw very commonly people would go to lithium springs. There's several of them around the world. And depression, people would be happier. They would sleep better. The depression would go away for several days after spending time in a lithium tub. That's what we were doing at my wellness center, is we created lithium springs for people. We created it with lithium crystals and so forth, and super oxygenated purified water. And we're getting tremendous results. But then I thought, okay, what can we do at home? You can do all this at home. Just take lithium. But in our society, what the psychiatrists found is, okay, if lithium helps all these conditions, and schizophrenics even, their symptoms would go away after being in lithium springs. So let's mine up some lithium and let's give it to schizophrenics. And it didn't do anything. So they increased the dose and they increased the dose until they hit a toxic dose. And so at a toxic dose, the lithium would take away their schizophrenia, as long as they had the lithium in their system, but it was a toxic dose. So now you couldn't give lithium to anybody else and say, hey, you want to sleep better, you want to feel better, you want to be happy, you want to have no blood sugar rushes and all this stuff. If you want to get all these benefits from lithium, you're going to have these toxic side effects. That's because, and this is the big difference, is the form of lithium that they mined up with lithium carbonate. And lithium carbonate does not cross the blood-brain barrier. You have to saturate the body with a good mineral, but too much of anything is not good for you. Dr. Hans Nieper in Germany discovered that if you bond lithium to mother's milk, a substance in mother's milk is called uric acid. You bond it to mother's milk, the lithium in tiny doses, just like you only need a little bit of calcium, a little bit of magnesium, a tiny, tiny little bit of lithium, bonded to mother's milk, crosses the blood-brain barrier and gives the brain what it needs. Lithium is such an amazing substance. If you take a neurotoxin, like say MSG causes brain cell death, you can take a petri dish, add MSG, brain cells will get excited and they'll die. They'll prematurely die right then. And this is what we're doing.
In our food. It's in our food and in a variety of different names, just like glyphosate is allowed in 160 foods by the EPA at levels far above what has been shown to destroy our gut bacteria. This is why we're having this conversation. And MSG is probably in way more different kinds of foods with a variety of names, correct?
It's all there and a variety of names. It can simply say natural flavors and it's MSG. It could be really natural flavors too. You just don't know. We need labeling, and clearly we need labeling with GMOs. This is just, oh my gosh. So, and people need to know with wheat, and I'll let you say it when it comes to wheat, what they're doing is spraying the wheat with the glyphosate after the wheat has grown up. So your wheat is covered with glyphosate, goes into destroying your gut, causing inflammation, causing leaky gut syndrome, causing food allergies, causing brain challenges and inflammation throughout your body. And,
it doesn't wash off. It doesn't dry off and it doesn't cook off. Most people think, oh, I'll just wash it off in the kitchen sink. And it doesn't. It doesn't even cook off.
No, it's there. It's inside it.
And it lasts for 315 days in dark, salty water. So if it gets into our womb, our fetus is exposed to that. And so the whole nother topic is infertility and all that. But and another study has shown that shrimp over 5.2 parts per billion of exposure, or million, sorry, of exposure, died within 4 days. And a fetus is the size of a shrimp. You know, with that exposure to glyphosate, we have to consider what's happening to our fetuses as well. Sorry, I digress, but I'm a little.
I just got it. We got to stay on this whole thing. We've got to tell our government, stop. We need labeling. And I'm just so grateful to you and the work you're doing with this and to share this with everybody. But I want to finish on lithium now. So what they found, what Dr. Nieper found is if you just take the normal dose of, that's lithium orotate right there. That is the cheapest. That is the cheapest supplement you can buy online for a 2-month supply, $11. One little tiny tablet.
And then you also have your combination of minerals, right?
There's a super minerals for men and boys, super minerals for women and girls. What I found is that people were doing the lithium orotate, which has no toxicity. There's no toxicity with lithium. I was just explaining that if you have a petri dish of brain cells and you add lithium to it, you add MSG, brain cells die. However, if you soak the brain cells for 9 days, having added lithium to them, add MSG, and MSG does not kill your brain cells. Lithium protects, it's a neural protector of toxicity to the brain. So these heavy metals can't kill your brain cells if you've got enough lithium in them. So lithium has also been proven to be the only substance that will actually cause you to regenerate and create more brain cells. Lithium is in our food. This is like calcium's in our food, lithium's in our food. So why do we need supplementation? Due to farming practices, there's less lithium in our food, there's less calcium in our food, there's less magnesium in our food. We have to supplement, but lithium is the most important to supplement because when we eat sugars, carbohydrates, simple fruits, simple carbs, cakes, cookies, ice cream, bread, wheat, all that, and all those things cause lithium to come out of the body. Anything that makes your brain feel good depletes your brain of lithium. It's necessary to feel good in the brain. Now, a lot of my other work is about women's stress levels needing oxytocin. Oxytocin is the bonding hormone. We're also seeing with children, when you have eye contact, oxytocin gets produced. Oxytocin is affection and touching and so forth. Lithium also stimulates the production of oxytocin. This is like this miracle substance.
It sounds like it.
It's just so, but what I found is you can do it and people will notice calm and relaxation, repeating thoughts stop. And but then after a while, they start to feel tired if they don't also use the other minerals. Because if you're deficient in lithium, you're probably deficient in calcium and magnesium and potassium and zinc. These are all very important brain minerals. It's just we're most deficient in lithium. So you get a clear boost for a while, but you also need the others. And the only minerals that have proven to cross the blood-brain barrier are when they're bonded to mother's milk, this uric acid, so these lithium orotates. So that super minerals product is combining the minerals with uric acid in order to be more efficient in being absorbed in the brain. So they're all very low doses. There's absolutely no toxicity. It's not for crazy people. It's to help regulate stress in our bodies and our brains. And the body can be more relaxed, more present. And it doesn't go into all of this overexcited brain function. Your body can stay balanced. And as I mentioned before, the most recent research showed that glyphosate, besides killing your good bacteria, glyphosate goes into the brain and disrupts the calcium utilization, which lithium is also a part of, which is GCMAF is also part of, vitamin D is a part of, and it interferes with that whole process. So this is how we can bring it back into balance, is getting these extra supplements. The Bravo yogurt, the challenge with that is not, you just can't go to the store and buy it. You can go online and you can get the mix. And it's, you have to mix these probiotics along with colostrum with milk, and then you stir it up and it turns to yogurt. I have all the instructions at my website teaching mothers how to make yogurt for their children. And you know, your standard yogurts usually have about 3 strains of probiotics. Some of them might have 6. This is a special one that's known and proven to create GCMAF that can help the body make vitamin D work more efficiently. And that will be an adjunct to any person who wants better thinking, more brain performance, clearer memory, and so forth. Vitamin C is important as well. All these sort of things I explain in the book in much greater detail. People don't want to read the book, they can always go to my website and have videos explaining it too.
Yeah, well, it is a fascinating read. It's staying focused in a hyper world. And, you know, you just touch upon so many different factors as you did today. There's a toxic soup that our children are being exposed to, not just in our food, but in our water. We highly encourage you to get your glyphosate testing done on momsacrossamerica.com under action. You can click on glyphosate testing and get your water and urine tested for glyphosate, just so you have a gauge of where you're at. And a lot of people notice, oh, I've been eating organic for a really long time, but I do eat out at restaurants now and then. And we suspect that the restaurants, they have the allowable level of glyphosate at 40 parts per million of glyphosate, and it only takes 1 part per billion to destroy your gut bacteria. And so, you know, that eating out at restaurants can be very impactful unless you get steamed food or, you know, something that doesn't have oils in it. That, you know, that's alternative. So there's lots of different things that you can do, and your book and your minerals are just so excited. I've been taking the super minerals for women for a week now, and I really do feel lighter and happier and more joyful. And you know, that's a tough thing when I know what's going on in the world right now. You know, there's a lot going on, and there's been a long time where I felt like I just can't feel joyful. And so I think it's having a good impact on me, and I really appreciate you being on the show today. Is there anything else that you want to say about, I'd like you to just touch on for 1 minute, I know we're a little bit over time. Can you just touch on the symptoms of ADHD? I think a lot of people think, oh, it has to be, you know, only, you know, a certain way, but I think a lot more people might be aware, like a lot more people might have ADHD or these symptoms than they think. Can you just touch on that for a few minutes before you go?
Absolutely. We really should label it something else, because there's so many different symptoms of what we might call inhibited dopamine function in the brain. So dopamine gives us focus. And what happens with our children when the brain's not making enough dopamine, then we feel bored and flat, and we seek out higher dopamine stimulation. So that would be a child playing a video game or an iPad or watching TV or eating sugar. Carbohydrates stimulate high levels of dopamine. But what that does is it affects the brain, and it downregulates dopamine receptor sites. And now you're dependent upon higher and higher stimulation. And this is what's happening to our children. Now, the way this shows up is every child is being affected by this. It's just certain temperaments of children are more obvious. Now, there's basically 4 types of children, our tendencies, and there's overlap here, but there's very active types, okay? They're more mesomorph, and girls or boys, but they tend to be more physical and moving. They tend to get into sports more. When they have this condition, we'll call it hyper condition, they become hyperactive. When they go through puberty, then suddenly they're just no longer so hyperactive. But now what happens is their mind becomes, they get involved with things that cause risk, danger. They're hyperreactive, they're impulsive, they make mistakes. So they take risky investments as they get older. They can't stay in love long. They want to go from one person to another. So nothing holds their attention. Remember, dopamine is attention. So this is a hyperactive. Then you've got the hyper distracted. That's the traditional ADD. That's your more creative temperament. Their minds are always wandering. They're disorganized. They can't remember where they put things. They can't organize their homework. They tend to wait to the last minute to do things. You wait to the last minute, then it's an emergency. That will then stimulate lots of dopamine. So this is very common. So those are 2 common temperaments. But there's 2 other temperaments. One is the sensitive temperament. This is the hypersensitive child. EMFs wipe out these kids. Electromagnetic frequencies, Wi-Fi have a really pronounced effect on them. Their cells are actually thinner and they're affected by things more. They're more emotional, their intensity of emotional sensitivity. They get their feelings hurt more. They cry more. They get upset. They have digestive issues more. So that's the hypersensitive child. Then you get the hypercompulsive child. Now these children have to be, they're really good kids, but when you add hyper to it, they're hypercompulsive. Things have to be a certain way. And if they're not that way, they throw tantrums and they get upset. They're hyper-perfectionists as they grow in their teenage years. And marriage, they have huge problems in marriage because they have to be so perfect. If their partner will never live up to those expectations. It's sort of a grip where we find ourselves getting upset over things. We go, why am I getting so upset? That's because we're in this hyper state of hyper demanding perfection or control. So that's how it's showing up in different ways. And it shows up at every stage of life differently. So they often say kids grow out of ADHD. No, it just turns into something else. If they're the hyperactive type, it turns into addictions to coffee. You know, keep myself going. I need my coffee. Coffee's another dopamine stimulator. The sensitive types will go, and the creative types will go into addiction to sugar. You know, they've got to have their sugar and so forth. So it shows up in different ways. We're just out of balance. And as a parent, this is the most important thing. A little piece of advice. And in the book is filled with this stuff. But what happens is children are designed to get dopamine, the most important stimulation. Dopamine gives you pleasure, motivation, and interest, okay, and focus. That's all comes from dopamine. Now, if you're a child, you've never been exposed to all this stimulation of sugar, junk food, TV, video games, and all that, if you're not exposed to that, the #1 major dopamine stimulator is your mother's smile, your dad being proud of you. It's the presence of your parents and their approval of you stimulates huge amounts of dopamine. Even to this day, when something really good, I get a little teary-eyed. I wish my parents were here to see that. It's human nature. It's the biggest motivator to do well is our parents' approval, their love. You know, we want to trigger that. Well, let's say it produces this much dopamine and that motivates us. But if we get a TV set going, a video game going, sugar, it produces this much dopamine. So suddenly what's the major motivator? Is TV, desserts. And now parents have a hard time motivating your children without saying, if you do this for me, you can have dessert. Or if you do this for me, you can have a certain amount of time on the video game. And that's where we're going. The major motivator is no longer this sort of natural relationship with our parents. It's the stimulation. It's the reward that we can provide out here and out here. We're creating little addicts in childhood. You have to realize this high dopamine is what's produced by cocaine, by methamphetamines, by heroin, by Ritalin, by Adderall. These are synthetic drugs that come in and push the dopamine level up. Then lower levels of dopamine have no effect on us. If you think of it like if a coffee drinker, you drank 1 cup of coffee the first time, it was like heroin in your body. It's like, wow, this is amazing. After a while, you don't even notice it. Then you want 2 shots. Then after a while, you don't notice that. You want it twice a day. And that's because high stimulation changes the brain, you lose these receptor sites. Dopamine goes in the receptor site, you go, oh, I feel good. Now, if you put too much dopamine in, your brain says you're feeling too good, so we're going to get rid of the dopamine, some of your receptor sites. If you take cocaine, the first use, you lose 30% of your dopamine receptor sites. That's what Parkinson's is you gradually lose all of your dopamine receptor sites. And the medications people are taking will cause you to the condition to get worse and worse rather than get better and better. And once again, I've written all about this for myself, which is how I could rebuild those receptor sites and not use the medication. I mean, a whole nother show about carbidopa is one of the most toxic substances that they give to Parkinson's patients. And since they use it, more people die of Parkinson's and the symptoms get worse and worse. But if you just take L-Dopa along with tyrosine, 5-HT, vitamin D, vitamin C, the Bravo yogurt, your body will come back into balance again. And there's some studies on PubMed showing that those supplements actually reverse Parkinson's, reverse ADHD. This is out there, but it's just one out of a million studies, you know? So how do you find this stuff? That's what I point out in my book. Help people know there's options for these things.
Well, I don't know if you might feel this way, but maybe getting Parkinson's might have been one of the best things for you and for millions of other people that are learning now from you. It
was the best thing for me, for sure, and for my marriage with my wife. It got so much better. You know, I was teaching Men Are From Mars because basically you had to practice these skills, and then with the right brain function, it becomes very easy. It becomes effortless. You know, the thing where men get restless when they're listening to you. They can't stay focused. Their mind wants to go somewhere. That's a form of hyper ADHD type symptom. And for women,
that's what's going on with my husband.
Well, the flip side of it for women is they feel like overwhelmed. They're hyper. I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to do this. It shows up differently for men and women. And that's what I explore as well in the book, which is fun information.
Wow. Well, great. We could talk for hours, but I really want to honor your time. Usually you get extremely well compensated for this amount of time, and you've donated that to us and all the moms and supporters. Because, you know, when I met you at Autism One conference, I could really see that you are completely devoted to human beings and to relationships and to us all thriving together. So I just noticed that in your spirit, and I thank you for your offer to support Moms Across America in any way you could. And I'm so glad you could be on today. And we want to urge all of our watchers to find out more about GMO labeling. There is an act called the DARK Act, which is HR 1599. If you want to avoid GMOs and toxic chemicals in your food, number one, it has to be labeled. We of course want it eliminated, but first we have to get them labeled. So we want to say no to HR 1599 when it hits the Senate floor, possibly in a month or two. And we want to say yes to the Senate bill 511 and yes to the House bill 913, both which make mandatory GMO labeling. We have to know what's in our food. It's absolutely necessary. And we also need to educate, because just like MSG, aspartame, and high fructose corn syrup, people will still buy them if they don't know about them. So we urge you to share this information, to get this book, Staying Focused in a Hyper World. It mentions GMOs and toxic chemicals, and we just want to thank you, John, so much for spreading the word.
Such a pleasure. You saw something in me, but I see it in you. I mean, you are amazing. Thank you for being so important to let everybody know about this. And I guess they go to your website and they find out where they can get all the information to connect with your speakers.
You can go to website for glyphosate testing, momsacrossamerica.com for the glyphosate testing, but we will put up your book and your link. I'm sorry, I didn't do that before the show, but it'll be under solutions. We have a lot of information there, and we will be honored to promote your book and everything you have to say in it. It's so exciting to see a doctor actually speaking what we moms have been, feeling is true and right. And we've been, attacked and insulted and criticized, and, to have a well-renowned, world famous doctor agreeing with us, and seeing this and explaining it all and making it more detailed for us is, and offering, of course, tremendous amounts of solutions for us. It's just so exciting. So
thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone, for being with us tonight. This will be viewed. It will be up on the website, momsacrossamerica.com, under Connect and live broadcast, so you can share it with your friends and family. It'll be there for you for eternity. So thank you. Good night, everyone. Good night, John.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you so much.